Good afternoon, I'm Karen Kozia Phillips. C News is live at noon. To the top of the newscast, John Estrada is set to resign as United States Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago. In a statement issued today, he explained every time a new president is elected, U.S. ambassadors all over the world submit their resignation. It is up to the new president to either accept or reject these resignations. He said he would have resigned even if Hillary Clinton had won. He went on to say for now he remains the representative of President Barack Obama, the U.S. government and the American people in Trinidad and Tobago, and will continue to serve in that capacity until a decision is made. Estrada was born in Laventille, Trinidad, and has been in the post for less than a year. Now, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton in Tuesday's presidential election in a stunning victory that caught many by surprise. Mr. Trump began taking an early lead as the results began pouring in from across the U.S. At the New York-based Democrat camp, shock remained etched on the faces of the supporters who couldn't believe their candidate was losing after she'd been widely predicted to become the country's first female president. At 3:50 a.m., Mr. Trump made his victory speech, saying he'd be a president for all people.
Hillary has worked very long and very hard over a long period of time, and we owe her a major debt of gratitude for her service to our country. I mean that very sincerely. Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. We have to get together. To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. For those who have chosen not to support me in the past, of which there were a few people, I'm reaching out to you for your guidance and your help so that we can work together and unify our great country. Working together, we will begin the urgent task of rebuilding our nation and renewing the American dream. I've spent my entire life in business looking at the untapped potential in projects and in people all over the world. That is now what I want to do for our country.
And reaction in Trinidad and Tobago to the Donald Trump win in the U.S. presidential race has been measured. Political analyst Dr. Bishu Raghunath says that economically we will not be affected, at least not in the short run, but Mr. Trump's policy on immigration, he notes, may have some impact for our nationals.
Where we may be affected is simply in terms of the immigration policies that Trump would have proposed, as well as the issues with regard to terrorism, as Trump may have posed. In terms of the terrorism issues, remember that Trump had said that he's going to take the attack to ISIS one, as well as to have a temporary ban on all Muslims. Trinidad has a significant Muslim community, and that they could be impacted upon if he carries through that promise.
Meanwhile, former TNT Prime Minister Bassio Panday believes we will now see which election promises will actually become true.
Because quite frankly, it doesn't matter who is the President of the United States, you know. The government is really controlled by the Senate. But anyway, for the first time, I think in a long time, the Senate is controlled by the Republicans and the President is a Republican. But although Trump has won, I don't think there's going to be any wall that's going to be built along the borders of Mexico and the United States. That was all to okay. That was to satisfy the basic instinct of Americans.
Now, according to a report in 2014, there are some 4 million people from the Caribbean living in the United States. Some 220,000 of those are Trinidadians. And former Minister of Health Dr. Fuad Khan has congratulated Donald Trump on becoming the 45th man to be elected as President of the United States. Dr. Khan said this is the crowning achievement of a campaign whose brilliance demonstrated the vitality of American democracy to the entire world while keeping them captivated and amazed. He said while the spotlight will remain on Mr. Trump for some time to come, this should not detract from the fact that the Republican Party also now controls the U.S. Congress and Senate. You're watching the CNews Live Report at noon. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest news on our website at ctvtt.com, or you can check out our Facebook and Twitter pages at CNews Live. With Donald Trump winning the election, many countries have shared their views, one being Iran. Its president has raised the prospect the United States will pull out of the nuclear pact it signed last year with Iran, alienating Washington from its allies and potentially freeing Iran to act on its ambitions. Rishi Harinan has more in this report.
Outgoing President Barack Obama's administration touted the deal with Iran as a legacy foreign policy achievement as a way to suspend Tehran's suspected drive to develop atomic weapons. In return, Obama, a Democrat, agreed to a lifting of most sanctions. The deal, harshly opposed by Republicans in Congress, was reached as a political commitment rather than a treaty ratified by lawmakers, making it vulnerable to a new U.S. president such as Trump, who might disagree with its terms. Trump called the nuclear pact a disaster and the worst deal ever negotiated during his campaign and said it could lead to a nuclear holocaust. He said he would have negotiated a better deal with longer restrictions, but somewhat paradoxically, he criticized remaining U.S. sanctions that prevent American companies from dealing with Iran. Top officials at the European Union have invited Donald Trump to Europe for an urgent US-EU summit. In a joint letter, Donald Tusk, President of the European Council, and Jean-Claude Juncker, President of the European Commission, congratulated Trump and urged him to come to Europe for talks at his earliest convenience. Tusk and Juncker are seeking reassurance on key issues on which Trump's remarks on the campaign trail have rattled European leaders, including migration, climate change, and Russia's threat to Ukraine. Turkey's Prime Minister has called on Donald Trump to extradite a U.S.-based Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen, blamed by Anaka for the failed coup in July, as soon as he is sworn in. He said he hoped that the new leadership in the United States would take into consideration Turkey's sensitivities concerning the fight against terrorism, give proper priority to policies that would bring peace and stability to the region, and advance traditional friendship between the two countries. Japan is sending a top official to Washington to try and meet those who are responsible for the next White House administration. Now, the meeting to Washington will take place sometime next week. Now, Donald Trump's victory in the U.S. election is being viewed with shock and revulsion in Ireland. The country is close to the Clintons and fearful of Trump's campaign pledge to confront U.S. companies using Ireland as a tax shelter. Meanwhile, the Philippines, Palestine, Hungary, Germany, Turkey, India, and several other countries have congratulated Trump and said they look forward to working with him in the future. Rishi Harinanan, CNews.
And protests have broken out across many states in the U.S., most against the election of Donald Trump as president. The demonstrations reflected sadness, anger, and bursts of rage. Crowds openly disavowed the president-elect and a few resorted to vandalism. Here's more in this report.
Reports say shortly after Trump delivered a victory speech in New York, up to 1,500 people gathered at UCLA. The demonstration peaked at about 1 a.m. when a Trump piñata was set on fire in a trash can outside a Westwood Boulevard store. Bitter pro-Clinton voters from universities across California were heard chanting, "Not our president," as they sparked riots and stormed the streets in anger. Dramatic eyewitness video shows baying crowds of protesters smashing windows, overturning bins and lighting fires in the Bay Area of San Francisco. In Oakland, demonstrators smashed a window at the Oakland Tribune newsroom and ignited trash containers and tires. At UC Santa Barbara, hundreds marched near the campus, with some chanting, "Not my president, not my president." And in Portland, Oregon, Clinton supporters were filmed setting fire to the American flag while cussing Donald Trump. California Highway Patrol Sergeant Matt Langford told the San Francisco Chronicle that protests in the Bay Area centered around downtown and also saw a march along Highway 24 where a woman was struck by an SUV. She was rushed to hospital with major injuries. Small fires in Oakland also prompted the closure of a Bay Area rapid transit station. In downtown LA, anger simmered as a crowd gathered near City Hall. Some property was defaced, including a fence scrawled with graffiti insulting Trump. Anti-Trump protests are also set to take place outside the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago. There are fears more protests could erupt over the next 48 hours as the Brexit-style result sinks in.
Now for a look at the weather forecast.
A weak trough passing across the southern windward islands will maintain the moist, unstable conditions across many islands. In Trinidad and Tobago, we'll likely see a scattering of showers, some of them turning heavy or thundery, especially during the heat of the afternoon. It will feel pleasant, though, no higher than 33 degrees Celsius in Trinidad or 31 degrees Celsius in Tobago. For mariners heading out, look for easterly winds of 10 to 15 knots through the Caribbean and the Atlantic at 1.5 meters and easterly swells of 8 seconds, which are low tide at 6 p.m. That's the latest weather, and I am meteorologist Dean Wallace.
To some local news now, 2 of the United National Congress's candidates for the local government elections have been rejected by the Elections and Boundaries Commission for the electoral districts of Woodbrook and South Port of Spain. The UNC issued a list of their candidates on Tuesday. However, those 2 areas under the Port of Spain City Corporation appeared vacant. Reports say the 2 were rejected due to discrepancies with pertinent documents. The PNM will field their 137 candidates, while the UNC will now have 135. Police are now investigating a contraband find near the Golden Grove prison in Aruca. Officers of the Northern Division reportedly found 16 packets of marijuana, a cell phone and lighters near the facility on Monday. It is believed that the illegal items were to be transported to prisoners inside of the compound. And an Enterprise woman was beaten to death mere meters from her home on Wednesday morning. According to reports, at around 5:30 a.m., Pamela Balgobin of Walcott Lane was seen arguing with a man of African descent who allegedly robbed her. Residents claimed that Balgobin, aged 39, had confronted the man after she recognized him, but the woman was overpowered by him. She was reportedly beaten to death. She suffered wounds to the head. Her body was found in some bushes less than 50 feet from her home. An autopsy is expected to be conducted to determine the cause of death at the Forensic Science Center today. And the University of Trinidad and Tobago recognizes the contribution of 11 pioneers in society. From Pan, literature, law, and music, these giants of creativity and principle will receive honorary degrees when this year's UTT graduation comes off. Marie-Therese Bernard has more.
Icons of the nation representing the arts, law and society, such as pianist Ray Holman, literary giants Earl Lovelace and Michael Anthony, will receive honorary degrees from the University of Trinidad and Tobago as students graduate on Wednesday and Thursday from that institution. The chairman of the Board of Governors, Ken Julian, says this is a practice that has been reintroduced after 4 years to highlight the achievements of our outstanding artists, authors, musicians and law professionals.
To announce and to introduce those distinguished citizens whom the university, the Board of Governors, had agreed and approved that they be awarded as distinguished fellows honorary doctorates.
Among the awardees are Peter Minshall, with his staggering impact on Mars, David Boothman, composer and musician extraordinaire, Justice Anthony Lucky, virtual museum curator Angelo Bisesasing, prolific calypso soca composer Winsford Devine.
The community at large, particularly our young people, be made aware of the activities, the contribution that some of our distinguished persons in the arts, in engineering, in music, in education, the contribution they have made to our society.
Treated to calypso, pan and a sitar, the event served as a reminder of the great talent coming out of Trinidad and Tobago. Marie-Therese Bernard, C News.
In some news of football, with or without John Bostock, the Warriors take on Costa Rica here at home this Friday and then jet off to Honduras for a match 4 days later. Now, with that in mind, Hart and Company continued preparations on Monday evening at the match venue. History shows that a minimum of 16 points could qualify the lowest automatic CONCACAF team directly to the World Cup. So the best possible start to the 6-team final phase is imperative, says defender Radantha Abubakar.
Yeah, well, we know we have to bounce back from that result. This is obviously a different competition. There's a lot more at stake. It's World Cup. It's the biggest tournament you could be part of. And yeah, we all want to be part of that, and we've been working towards that, and hopefully we could get a good start on Friday. So it was just 10 games, you know, and we all know how difficult it is to travel and earn points in CONCACAF. So we want to take full advantage of playing at home on Friday, and then, you know, take that momentum into the next game 4 days later. So.
In cricket news, Joe Root hit a century and Moeen Ali an unbeaten 99 as England made a strong start on the first day of the first test against India in Rajkot. Root made 124 and shared a stand of 179 with Moeen to take England to 311 for 4 at the beginning of the 5-test series. Now England were earlier 102 for 3. Debutant Hasib Hamid making 31 after winning the toss on a surface that showed little turn and some low bounce. India, meanwhile, dropped 3 catches in the first half an hour of the day. Taken in isolation, they were not too costly for the hosts, but they set the tone for an opening day that could have not gone much better for heavy underdogs England. And that brings us to the end of the CNews Report at noon. Remember, you can stay with CNews for updates on the U.S. election throughout the afternoon. I'm Karen Kozier Phillip.